The desperate search for the missing as the tower block death toll rises to 17. The first pictures from inside the burnt-out building show the scale of the destruction. Police say an unknown number of people were trapped by the fire, many of them on the upper floors. Families have spent the day appealing for help to find loved ones who've not been seen since Tuesday night.
Reality is reality standing in front of us, but perhaps he's unconscious somewhere, perhaps in a hospital or something, so they could just let us know.
I'm live in West London as grief and shock begin to turn to anger. After visiting the scene, the Prime Minister orders a public inquiry. The Labour leader is urged to hold the government to account.
Someone has to be held accountable. Someone has to be held responsible. We do not want this kicked into the long grass. We do not want the government to sort of hide this with some hollow platitude that lessons will be learned.
And tonight, the Mayor of London is mobbed by residents calling for immediate action.
From West London, this is the ITV Evening News with Mary Nightingale.
Good evening from very windy West London as anger and frustration grow tonight over the lack of answers about what caused the tragedy here. Residents want to know why no one listened to their warnings and politicians called for quick action. Police say searching the burned-out tower block could take months and some victims may simply never be identified. Today, the Prime Minister visited the scene and announced a public inquiry. It came as the first victim was named, a Syrian refugee who'd come to the UK to escape the conflict, to get a better life. He was one of at least 17 people who died, but with scores still missing. Emergency services say that number will rise and there'll be no more survivors. Paul Davis reports.
A second dawn brought no end to the agony. There are no flames now, but this smouldering shell that was once home to so many families still holds an unknown number of their bodies. Fire crews believe in flats not yet safe to enter. There are whole families who couldn't get out or obeyed the instruction to stay put. Many, many remain missing, and it could take weeks to confirm their fate.
It's the upper floors that will be more challenging and will need some additional shoring for us to be able to get in there. The size of this building, it could take weeks. I want to be realistic, this is a very long process.
These images show the destruction on the ground floor of Grenfell Tower. This is the area least affected by that all-consuming fire. As this photograph shows, it gets worse as you go up. Very few escape the higher floors. The first victim officially named is Mohammed Al-Haj Ali, a 23-year-old refugee from Syria who died desperately trying to call his family back home.
He was knowing like he's gonna die. There is no choice like of saving him. So that's why he was trying to just call his family. Yeah, but he couldn't even call his family just to say goodbye. Then he called one of his friends and he said, please tell my family that I love them.
If the initial response to this tragedy was horror, as the hours have passed, there have been mounting questions and mounting anger.
There is a system in place. That is the product. That is it.
They give us nothing at all. Yeah, but they're lying.
Labour's leader visiting the area heard the concerns of residents who say fears they'd expressed about the tower's safety were ignored.
Someone has to be held accountable. Someone has to be held responsible. We do not want this kicked into the long grass. We do not want the government to sort of hide this with some hollow platitude that lessons will be learned. We've heard that.
The Prime Minister paid her own private visit to Grenfell Tower this morning and was criticised for meeting only the emergency teams and not the local community.
People are very angry, people are crying, people are lost, missing. And she's the Prime Minister, where is she? Even when she came, she didn't talk to anybody from the community.
Right now, people want answers, and it's absolutely right. And that's why I am today ordering a full public inquiry into this disaster, We need to know what happened. We need to have an explanation of this. We owe that to the families, to the people who have lost loved ones, friends, and the homes in which they lived.
It will never happen!
London's mayor visiting the scene said anger was understandable.
You can see the anger from the community, justifiably so, because many members of the community have been saying...
Not just the community, it's everyone outside as well.
Fed up with these politicians, no handshakes. We want action, not handshakes.
Sadiq Khan said the inquiry should be immediate and that no one should have to wait 2 years to find out why this happened. Paul Davis, ITV News.
The lack of information is increasing the frustration for friends and family of the scores of people who are still missing. A wall of condolence has been created where many have put up pictures and appeals for help. It's also become a focal point for tributes to all of those caught up in the tragedy. Chris Shipp reports now on the desperate search for news.
There are some white plastic boards which have been put up on a brick wall on the side of a community centre near Grenfell Tower. And on them are the names of those still missing. There are many names here, and whether you knew these faces or not, it's a difficult place to be. There's a message here for the Cowchair family, and there are lots of them still missing.
It's all my mum, my sister and her daughters and her husband.
Sorsan doesn't know what's happened to 6 members of her family, including her sister and 3 children who she last spoke to as they were trying to escape.
If any of you see this message, please phone us. Anyone.
When schools broke up today, there were children leaving messages at the wall. Messages for the friends they haven't seen since Tuesday. Jessica Urbano is one of them.
She said, come and get me, but we couldn't get in there.
We found her father looking for Jessica at St Mary's Hospital this morning. He was on the lower floors at the time, but Jessica was asleep in bed on the 20th floor. She said, come and get me, but he couldn't.
She phoned us at 1:20 and she was already 2 floors down, and then the phone cut off. The firefighters were already in there and they wouldn't allow me to go up.
In Grenfell Road, the street after which the tower was named, we saw this taxi. On it a handwritten note, "My car, I'm missing." It's the taxi Mohammed Nida parked here on Tuesday night before going to his flat, number 205.
We're still keeping our minds open. I mean, reality is standing in front of us, but perhaps he's unconscious somewhere, perhaps in a hospital or something, so they could just let us know.
You just said the reality is standing in front of you. You clearly do fear the worst for your uncle.
We do fear, yes. Yeah.
But you've got to have a little bit of hope.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely.
And you'll keep that going.
Yeah, we'll try that.
His uncle's driver's ID card is where he left it, if that hope comes through. And hope is all many have left. Isaac Shower is just 5. His father had his 2 boys with him. In the chaos of what happened next, they were separated.
There was smoke, so it was very hard to see when they evacuated from the 18th floor. And I think the father had both of the children, and it was quite hard for him to hold on to both of them.
These are just some of the faces of those missing. Still tonight, they wait for news. Chris Shipp, ITV News, West London.
Anna, it is the sheer numbers of those residents still missing that's increased fears that so many could have perished in the fire. Rebecca Barry joins me now. So, Rebecca, how high do we think that figure could turn out to be?
Well, the number confirmed to have died now stands at 17, but it is inevitable that with up to 600 people living in that 24-storey tower block, the total number will rise. We've been told by police officers and members of the fire service that the total number could be considerably higher, and tonight a Met Police commander said he hoped it wouldn't be in the triple figures. We've heard reports that many of the deceased are in stairwells, are in groups inside some of the flats, and even on the roof as people try to escape the flames. Specialist search and rescue teams are now carrying out fingertip searches, which, as you can imagine, will take weeks and perhaps months to complete. They're working with search dogs, but at this stage they're not, of course, looking for any survivors, just trying to identify those who've lost their lives. So far, 6 people have been provisionally identified, but we've been warned that sadly it might not be possible to identify all of those killed.
Rebecca, thank you very much indeed. Well, one of the main lines of inquiry will be why the fire spread so quickly and trapped so many inside. And the focus will be very much on the new cladding that was recently put around the entire building. But there are wider questions over why sprinklers weren't installed and also on the alarm system in the tower block itself. Joel Hills reports on the causes of the fire and its consequences.
We don't know what caused the fire. We do know it spread quickly. Insulation panels fixed to the side of the tower block were clearly alight. The investigation will assess whether the cladding was to blame. Aluminium exterior cladding has been held responsible for several recent tower block fires, like this one in Dubai. In September 2014, Kensington and Chelsea Council gave planning approval for the types of cladding that could be used in the Grenfell refurbishment. But this architect told us that the information in the document is vague and non-specific.
If the panels are a suitable product for this application, then the defect is most probably in the workmanship, in the installation of the panels, where the contractor perhaps, and this is pure speculation, failed to include cavity barriers at all the places where the cavity barriers are required.
The investigation will also examine why Grenfell Tower had no sprinkler system. In 2013, a coroner asked the government to write to councils, encouraging them to retrofit older blocks with sprinklers, following a fire in Camberwell in which 6 people were killed. It was a recommendation, not a legal requirement. Stephen Sieber says 100 tower blocks were upgraded, 4,000 weren't. How much does it cost to retrofit a flat with sprinklers?
It's approximately £2,000 per flat, depending on the size of the flat, number of rooms and the size of the building.
£2,000. Some councils will complain that's too expensive, they can't afford it.
Others have clearly decided it's not too expensive. Indeed, Brighton have decided to retrofit all of their 52 tower blocks over a 25-year programme.
The investigation will also look at Grenfell Tower's fire alarm system. Some residents complained they hadn't heard an alarm go off. It's not clear there was one. Remember, the official advice in case of fire was stay put. The tower's smoke detection system had been upgraded and extended in the recent refurbishment, but it was primarily designed to alert the fire brigade.
This huge disaster has exposed some very serious flaws in our system. No single flat fire should have led to the inferno and the devastation we've seen.
The cry has gone up, never again. At least 17 people are dead, hundreds have been left homeless. Now we need to know why. Joel Hills, ITV News.
Still to come on the ITV Evening News, living in a tower block, residents demanding safety be reviewed in all high-rises. And rallying round the community, helping each other to cope with this terrible tragedy. Those stories and more after the break. Join me then. Hello again, welcome back to a very windy West London. Now, the terrible events we've witnessed here are especially alarming, of course, for thousands of families still living in blocks just like Grenfell Tower behind me, just a few miles away, a few miles north in Camden. Exactly the same type of cladding has been installed on a housing estate by the same companies. Rupert Evelyn reports now on how those residents are living in fear.
A 1960s high-rise block refurbished with a new face fit for the 21st century. Camden's gleaming Chalcott's estate and the ill-fated Grenfell Tower have similarities. They both use the same 2 contractors, Ryden and Harley Facades, to clad the building. It's an uncomfortable connection for many who live here.
Have you been asking yourself more questions?
Yeah, a lot more questions. A lot more questions. What we do in the same situation, what exactly our building is made of, how flammable it is, etc. All the sorts of questions that weren't in our minds before yesterday are definitely arising now.
There are no fire alarms in this building. There's no means of knowing that there's a fire. So yes, I'm deeply concerned.
Do we have the same type of cladding? If so, has the advice changed? Should we get out rather than staying in?
There's no sprinkler system and only a single staircase for escape. The list of concerns and mixed messages is a long one.
Sound the alarm.
So there's no alarm.
There is no
Unless you go banging on people's doors.
Okay. And you said it using the appliances provided.
We haven't got any fires. You see any appliances around here? No.
These are nervous times for people living in high-rise buildings. After the Grenfell fire, it's fair to say that many thousands of people, not just here in London but across the country, are very worried about their homes. Tonight, Camden Council have told us they'll inspect the cladding and do safety checks on high-rise blocks. Reassurance is required, but as residents look out over London, there is a vivid and unnerving symbol of the worst-case scenario. Rupert Evelyn, ITV News, North London.
Well, let's have a look at other news now. The delayed state opening of Parliament and the Queen's speech will now take place next Wednesday. It comes as Theresa May has yet to finalise a deal with the DUP to form a minority government. Our political correspondent Carl Dinnan is in Downing Street tonight. So, Carl, any sign of an agreement with the Unionists?
Well, it hasn't been announced yet, but Theresa May clearly has enough confidence that there will be a deal that she's gone ahead and put a date in the diary for the Queen's speech to announce her programme for government. I understand she told the Queen last night that that could go ahead next Wednesday, 2 days later than planned. Now, we keep being told that the deal is very, very close, but not that it's actually there. A senior Conservative source says they have broad agreement on things like Brexit, strengthening the union, counter-terror measures, and increasing prosperity across the UK. The big question is how much of that prosperity will end up going to Northern Ireland as part of this deal. Other Northern Irish parties were meeting the Prime Minister here today, and they've been told that the full deal will be made public when it is ready. Now, as well as that deal, the government also announced that Brexit talks would begin next week on Monday. So it feels as though the process of government is starting again, but it is slow and it is faltering.
Carl Dinnan in Downing Street, thank you. 4 funerals were held today for some of the victims of last month's terrorist attack in Manchester. A joint service was held for teenage couple Chloe Rutherford and Liam Curry in South Shields. Their families said they will be together forever. And Prince Harry visited Borough Market to help support traders caught up in the London Bridge terror attack. The market reopened for the first time yesterday, and Prince Harry praised the resilience and the spirit of London. And finally tonight, the reaction of local people here has been one of the few bright spots really to come from this tragedy. There have been countless acts of kindness with volunteers overwhelmed by donations of food, clothing and baby items. Some have even offered up their own homes, and almost £1 million has been raised and a fund set up to help the dispossessed. Nina Nana reports now on the incredible community spirit.
Your blessing.
One lost her home, the other gave hers. When her feeder escaped from the 11th floor of Grenfell Tower, Tasnima, living nearby, met her on the street and gave her a bed for the night.
She was talking to me, you know, lightening the burden they have. She made life like it's nothing. Yeah, we're here, tomorrow is not much. I swear to God, you don't know what you did. I swear to God.
Thank you so much. If you just go down to the corner and to the left.
So many people have donated supplies, they're being asked to return in a week. This is a long-term relief mission.
This is absolutely extraordinary. All these hours later, just look at everyone here, busy packing away all of the donations to make sure that in the coming days, weeks, even months, it will get out to everyone who needs it.
Every single thing that's been sent into this area was sent with love and an intention to help the people. It was sent from the people to the people. So we don't even want one bag left on the streets of Ladbroke Grove.
We're looking for volunteers at the Maximilian Centre to help us bag.
They looked for volunteers and they just kept coming on street corners, marketplaces and community spaces.
Got United Nations here. Last night we just had car upon car, van upon van. At one point the road was blocked up. We had Chinese people here serving food. We had Arabs, Pakistanis, Bangladeshis, Afro-Caribbean community, the English community.
Hot meals, cold fruit, warm comfort. a community in need and a community that has answered. Nina Nanar, ITV News in West London.
And that is all for now. At 7:30 this evening, there's a special edition of Tonight with Julie Etchingham on the tower block disaster. Tom Bradby will be here with news at 10, but from me and all the team here in West London, I'm back in the studio. Have a very good evening.